All right, guys, welcome back to another interview on MMAUnhinged. Once again, I'm joined by George Hardwick. How's it going?
It's going very well. Another good week of training in the books. You
Yeah,
know,
another good week for a Cage Warriors lightweight champion. First and foremost, 2 months on. How does that feel?
um, I kind of feel like because I'd been chasing that belt so long, it'd been way like last year. I'd been starting to train for fighting Medi in December, and then that fight fell through, and then the next guy fell through. But it's so weird that you train that long for it, and then it settles in a couple of days, and you're like, well, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? I kind of forced myself to take a little bit of rest and recuperation because I've been just doing like fight camps, fight camps, fight camps. But yeah, it's a weird human state where just like it doesn't last that long.
Yeah, I mean, as you talked about the uncertainty of what's next. We'll get up to that. But obviously, you talked about you had that time off, and I think it's well deserved. And you talked to me before we went on air about going to Crete. So, what did you get up to with your time off?
So I still got back to training. Like whether there's a fight or not, most likely I'm training 2 times a day, Monday to Friday, and then once on Saturday morning. And it just changes whether it's fight camp, like the intensity of it. I took the full week off in Crete, but I learned to swim, which is interesting. Like I couldn't do 2 breaststrokes without my face going underwater and sucking up a load of salt water. But within a few days, I was getting a good swim in. That'll ease my thalassophobia. I think I think that's what you call a phobia of the ocean.
I have no idea. I mean, I just called Parma an Italian food, so what do I know?
You called it a pesto. Pesto's that green stuff.
I have no idea. I am clueless when it comes to foreign food. Like it's ridiculous. But yeah, before we went on there, I was calling it a pesto, which is ridiculous. And George didn't like that. He said you got to come to Middlesbrough to try Parma.
Yeah, I think that some places have done Parma with pesto on. I haven't had one of them yet. I love pesto, so I need to find that out. I need to source one.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that all-important fight against Kyle Driscoll. A championship win. You're getting that belt. But heading into the fight, you thought there would be a clear edge of the boxing. But the first round, he came out sharp. Did he surprise you a little bit?
Yeah, it was a good surprise. I thought he was going to shoot right off the bell. I thought he was going to try and cold clock me, get in like those wrestling exchanges whilst I'm dry. Because if you get on top early, you can wear on someone a bit if you catch him off guard, and then they've got to work out the bad positions. And then he's like jabbing me, and he's jabbing me, and I'm like, is he going to shoot after the next jab? And my nose is starting to bleed more and more. I've got a cut on my nose. My nose is bleeding. I'm like, he's going to shoot after the next jab, and he didn't. He kept boxing, which in a weird way could have worked into my favor. I start bleeding. He suddenly gets a lot more confident in his boxing. He thinks I can box with him. But as the rounds went on, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, into the fourth, where I've been racking up body shots and I'm more efficient as a boxer, as a striker, that played in my favor and probably got him away from his plan of wrestling, to be honest.
Yeah, we were talking about before we went on. I thought he would come in early, have a little shot, maybe test the waters of obviously your takedown defense. But it didn't seem like it looked like he came here to box. And I talked to him, if he tried to box with them borough hands, I didn't think it was going to go good.
Yeah, Borough hands, bechamel hands. It's not good. It didn't really work for him long term. Like I was expecting him to clinch up and put me to the fence. One thing I was thinking before the fight is the O2 in Indigo, the London O2 Indigo. When it's in that venue, the cage is slightly smaller. I think it was the same in York Hall, and it's just due to the things of the venue. Like when Harry fought in Belfast, it was a big like arena.
Yeah,
there's loads of space. They have the full cage. I think there's just like slight differences in the footage of the cage, depending on where it is. And the O2 is quite a cramped in place.
yeah.
So I thought, if it's a small cage and he's coming out of AKA, and they're the best cage wrestlers in the world, really, if he's learning off of Khabib and Makhachev, that was playing in my head a bit. But in the end, the small cage helped me because it helped me cut him off and circle him into body shots and circle him into calf kicks. It worked to my plan.
Yeah, you talked about it being in your head a little bit. When he wasn't shooting and he was trying to box for you, what was in your head? What was running through your head?
It was still just there. You you kind of are on autopilot, and there's just the odd thought
Just
floating
punch.
about.
Yeah.
There was a thought when I went back to my corner and I'm bleeding. And I'm like, I'm not hurt, but I'm bleeding and blood's coming out of my mouth. I'm like, I'm getting embarrassed here. What's going on? But I think it was just the way he was like scuffing his shots in. He was busting my nose up. He got a good feint. Like he would feint. I'd put my hands up as I would bring my guard back. He would hit through the middle as I'm resetting my guard. It was like really good timing on that. It's kind of like, you know, when Ali Kanta fought Khabib, and Khabib jabs him a lot.
Yeah.
But then he couldn't take him down for most of the fight. Because instead of Ali Kanta giving these massive reactions on each jab, he just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to take it on my forehead. But you're not going to get the takedown. I knew I'd get him in the later rounds. Like,
yeah, and it was the 4th round. Talk to me, you know, the feeling you talked about there when you went back to the stool. You saw the blood and you knew you weren't hurt, but talk to me, what's running through your head going into the 4th? Did any of your coaches say anything to you to maybe get yourself, I don't know, geared up a little bit?
I can't really remember a lot of what was going on between the rounds. Between the rounds would just blur that quick. But because I'd landed the big body shot in the 3rd, I had that just sense of when I'm breaking someone. Pete was saying this before the fight. My coach, Peter Irvin, is like, you've got this good sense. You know when someone's starting to break and ramping it up in like an effective way. Some people might clip someone, but they're not broken. But then they go all out and they go crazy, and it doesn't work out for them. It takes just a weird sense, and it's kind of like hard to explain that feeling of when someone is starting to just check out that little bit. It's just little signs where they get sloppy in the footwork just a little bit. You land a shot that earlier on they didn't react to, but then suddenly you land it again, and they're starting to turn away a bit. They're not really doing like their strict defense. They're getting away from their form, and you just get that sense of that, especially with the knockdown in the 3rd.
Yeah, you got the knockdown in the 3rd, then obviously you got the finish in the 4th. And then obviously after the finish, you see the immediate emotion. Where was that build up from?
It was just built up from months and months and months. Being my whole life for such a long time, you know, like in terms of a fight camp, just back to back to back, having that massive fight camp for Medi in December and then it didn't happen. Having a fight camp again for March, and then there wasn't really a title worthy opponent, so I had that catchweight fight. That was still training for the belt. And then this was the longest fight camp I've had. It was like 12 weeks. We both knew about this fight for a very long time. It was like to 12, 16 weeks. I don't know, it was months. It was months before the fight, the contract was signed. So it was such a long time. And like the first knockdown just happened like bump, bump, bump. I landed the shot, and there's no like thought process in it, because it was just kind of an immediate autopilot shot. Boom, lands in. Oh, I'm hitting him, and then he gets back up and he hits me with good shots. But the second one, because you're not getting up twice from 2 body shots, you know, you're not getting knocked down to the body twice and getting back up. So it's just as I was stiff arm, just putting my right hand in, I could feel Mark Goddard getting closer, and that was in my head. It's like, it's my belt, it's my belt, it's my belt. Like as I'm landing punches. So it's like the first one was just kind of like flash. I'm like surprised he got up, but there wasn't any mental process. But the second one, I could feel it building up. I could feel it building up before he stopped it.
Yeah, Kyle Driscoll can take an absolute shot. You talked about it in round number 3, you dropped him, you got straight back up. Round number 4, you finished him. He was wearing it, and also so were you. Was this the sort of fight you're expecting heading into the fight?
Not at all. I was expecting. In my head, I was telling myself these things like, if I have to defend 100 takedowns, I have to defend 100 takedowns to get the win. If I have to get up off my back 100 times, I'll get up off my back 100 times. It doesn't matter. I'll just keep working each situation. And then it's a boxing match. It's a straight kickboxing match. You'd only shoot if you got a bit tired or I landed a really good shot, which is probably why he didn't get his takedowns, because I'd land the shot and then he'd shoot off that rather than putting his takedowns behind his punches.
Beating someone from AKA, you talked about it a lot in the lead up. Kyle Driscoll fights out of AKA, American Kickboxing Academy, over there in the United States. And obviously, you're fighting out of a small city in Middlesbrough. So, what did it mean for you to bring it back to obviously Borough?
But yeah, it's not even a city. It's just a small town.
Yeah.
In the middle of it.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, it's not even a city. It's just a small town where its biggest feature is a fried chicken dish. But it's like our gym is tiny. A lot of it's held together with tape. You got to go down this weird alley. But we have what we need. We have a cage. We have mats. We have bags. We have everything you need. And then it's just a difference. Like the people training with him are other pro fighters. He's got all these coaches with these accolades like DC and Khabib and what have you. He's over there training with these. The people I'm training with, they're hardworking, like men in the real world. They're coming from jobs as electricians, as firefighters, bricklayers, like real hard jobs, like real world jobs. And they're coming in, maybe they're coming to the session 20 minutes late and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I'm like, I'm just really grateful you're here. And those are the people giving me my rounds. So sometimes it would play in my head when I'm training. There wouldn't be many coming up for a session, and I just have to tell myself, I'm here, my brother Harry's here, I can be a world champion with just that. Everything else is a bonus.
Absolutely, and you brought that belt back to Middlesbrough. You talked about what it means there, but obviously when you had that belt wrapped around you in that post-fight interview, did you think, this is it, I've done it, I've completed my dream?
Yeah, it was, because that had just been my whole life. Every time I'd gone to the gym and done a hard session, every time I'd, like little things, I could have a slice of brownie, but I won't. I could have like an extra little portion, but I'll weigh it out. I'll have a little bit less. All that kind of, because it bleeds over into everything. Oh, I could stay up and play some games. No, I'll get to bed and recover better. Because it bleeds over into absolutely everything. And it was just kind of the culmination of every decision, big or small, for that. Pretty much since like I got back into Cage Warriors, and I knew that's what I wanted, the Cage Warriors belt, when I signed to fight Truman. I knew as I got back into Cage Warriors, I'm going for that lightweight belt. So it's like a culmination of every decision, big or small, since then.
So how does it feel now that you have that belt wrapped around your waist? How does it feel?
It's like a weird human state. You always want the next thing, doesn't it? It's like one thing will never fulfill you completely, but I have to step back sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, I've got that belt. I've watched so many title fights, so many of my favorite fighters. My favorite UK fighter ever is Jai Herbert, who will put on brilliant performances to get that the Cage Warriors lightweight belt. I remember when I had my first fight in Cage Warriors, it wasn't actually Truman, it was Midas Flaminas. When I took that fight and it was in Birmingham, I'd got like beaten for 3 rounds. Midas like, give me a hell of a fight. And then I'm still in the arena and I'm watching the fight later on between Jai Herbert and Kane Carrizosa. And it's just like a perfect performance. I remember my amateur debut was on a combat challenge in Bradford or Leeds, something like that. I have a fight early on. I get my arm triangle submission. And then I'm watching a lot of these fights like, yeah, I could run through that guy. I could run through both these guys. Like, some of these guys don't know what they're doing. And then the main event fight, Jai Herbert is fighting someone. I think he's fighting someone from AVT, but it's another good fighter. And then suddenly I've went from watching these fights where I run through that guy. And then Jai Herbert's fighting, and he's doing his style of boom, boom, like that light-footed boxing. I was like, oh, wow, that's sick. But, there's obviously all the names that have held the belt, gone on to great things. Obviously McGregor, like adding my name to that list. But like I said, I still feel like I'm in a state where nothing's earned yet. I've got so much more to do.
Yeah, you talked about the names that held that belt, and I mean, that was my next question, actually, conveniently. McGregor, Jai Herbert, Stevie Ray, Mason Jones, that was just some of them. Paul Sutherland, just some of the names that, held that belt. Is ridiculous, and obviously now you add that name to that list. How's that feel?
Yeah, because those are people I've been watching in the UFC whilst I started my amateur career and pro career. I think everyone in the McGregor rise through featherweight, where he's doing all this different stuff, and he's doing like Edo Portal stuff, and I was doing like Edo's blogs and Florian stuff. Is he doing the Edo stuff? I recognize that. And now to be at that stage where I have the belt myself, I kind of have to like suck myself out of my own kind of meat vehicle sometimes, just to think, oh, fucking hell, that's weird to think about. But then it just goes straight back in, because you've always got to think about the next thing. It's human nature.
Yeah, so what is the next thing? Now you have that belt. I know it was a tough fight versus Kyle Driscoll. I know when you look to return and to return, obviously defend your belt.
I want another fight by the end of the year. It's like one more fight. I know there's late November and there's December. If there's any offers for UFC before then, that's what I want. I want to either defend the belt or UFC. And it's just being ready for what's going to happen. I've had me little rest, which was needed, because I'll rush back into training, even just like grappling, a little bit of bag work and what have you. And I think I'd rush back that quick after the fight. It was like, fuck, my side's hurting, my hand's hurting, my ankle's hurting. I just needed. It was like well timed the holiday, because then it was just like I can just take a week, chill the fuck out, and let it all recover.
Yeah, I know. You got on the bike after, and you said you called up. Well, not called up, but you said if Joe McColgan does want to come back, you would offer him that title fight.
Yeah, because he stepped out the way in the first place to let the division move on. He didn't want to just hold it as long as he possibly could, and just like try and stretch out the clout. I don't know if a word, whatever. But he stepped aside and he did the right thing. Obviously, we thought the division would move on a lot quicker. We thought we would have had the belt in December. But it's finally come round. So if he wanted to fight, I would honour that. Definitely.
Yeah, and how does it feel? Obviously, now you're the champion. How does it feel being the hunted instead of being the hunter?
It's just motivating. Like, everything's motivating. But it doesn't change the nature of what I'm going to do. I have a lot of stuff that I've been working on that I didn't even show in that last fight. I was at my bread and butter stuff in the last fight, and I've got a lot of stuff I've worked on that, I've kept under wraps. And I'll, let that show in another fight.
Yeah, absolutely. My last few questions I have for you. UFC, what does that mean for you if you do get your shot? And obviously, when it does come around, because it's going to come eventually, holding that Cage Warriors belt, it's a perfect segue into the UFC. But when it does come around, what does that mean for George Hardwick?
It's more just the opportunity of competition, because I like competition, and I like preparing for the competition. That's something that you learn more and more as you're going through fights. In some of the early fights, like amateur fights and pro fights, you're kind of training in the sense, I can't wait to have this fight and get a win, and then I can eat what I want for like however long. But as you go on more and more, that's not the satisfying bit. It's actually being in camp, because you'll only get so many fight camps through. I'll only get so many fight camps through my life, so it's kind of appreciating the preparation itself. And it wouldn't change my preparation in terms of I have to go to America or some nonsense like that. It's proven now. You can stay in the UK and become the best fighter in your world at your weight division.
Yep.
It's like Middlesbrough Fight Academy will always be the base.
Absolutely agree. You talked about, obviously, Leon Edwards winning that belt over there, obviously trained out of Renegade in Birmingham. So the inspiration is obviously there, and obviously he's going to inspire a whole nation, which is incredible.
Yeah, and it's like, I've only trained at Renegade a few times, and I can see why. It's an amazing gym, great culture. It's like there's so many great gyms in the UK, and I just get traveling different little flavors from them. Like, love training at Next Generation Liverpool, love training at Renegade, train at BST. I don't think it's the same anymore, where it's maybe 10, 15 years ago, there's not the same amount of wrestlers. Having said that, though, 100% takedown defense against this D1 wrestler because my coach Abdul Muhammad. That's such a huge thing. As you know, maybe even 5-10 years ago, you'd struggle to find the wrestlers, but from day one in MMA, I've been training with Abdul Muhammad, one of the best wrestlers in European MMA history, the Slam Man, Cage Rage champion. He was Cage Warriors welterweight champion back in 2004. So that's always been a really big tool in the arsenal.
Yeah, I spoke to Harry as well in an interview, and he also credited Abdul Muhammad. So he's got a secret that none of the others do.
But you know, you can watch a lot of his old fights and some of his like takedown sequences and control positions started to come like more in vogue as MMA developed. And Abdul was doing a lot of them before, a lot of the chain wrestling sequences, a lot of the fence cage wrestling sequences. So we've always had that from day one in MMA.
Exactly, and obviously you talked about Abdul, a fantastic coach, as you were speaking, Harry was speaking. But my last question I have for you, Parmos. Why is it Parmos?
So Parmo is the Teesside regional dish, and it is the best regional dish in the world. If your viewers don't know what it is, it's breadcrumbed chicken, fried. Take that out, slap bechamel sauce on it, cheese on it, grill it, like under a nice fierce grill, and then you'll have it with garlic sauce, like garlic mayo. It's really nice. It's one of the heaviest foods you can eat, just calorie wise. It's so dense. It's like the size of a pizza, but it's not like bread. It's all chicken and thick bechamel. It proper sits on your stomach, but it's the best thing. You can get a hot shot Parmo, where on the cheese it's got pepperoni, jalapenos, what have you. There's also, you can get bolognese Parmo, where there's bolognese in the cheese. I love the pulled pork Parmo from Central Park. One of the heaviest, most unhealthiest foods I've eaten before is it's a large Parmo, which, bear in mind, is like, it's like the size of a pizza, and it's covered in doner meat, and it's about 6,000 calories in a meal.
Wow!
Like the chicken Parmo is about 2,000 calories, 2.5. The doner meat's about 1.5, 2,000 calories, and then you've got your chips and your garlic sauce, which is about 1,500 calories. It's like by himself, it's such a huge mass of food. And then you just go into a cheese coma. It's brilliant.
Wow, I think you've just sold it for me. I need to get down to Middlesbrough as quick as possible. Only a quick drive, but wow, you've actually sold it to me. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint. I'm gonna have to send you a message after I try one.
There's no way it disappoints. It's the best regional dish.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, George. It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, congratulations on that title win against Kyle Driscoll, earning that Cage Warriors Lightweight Championship. I mean, I can't wait to see you defend it. I can't wait to see where you go from here. There's only big things up from now.